well with grief that there's something she can't actually see that dying. There's something in about the situation that it will not allow her to see it. So she thinks that her child is very sick, and she goes around the villages asking people for help. You know, can you help my child? And nobody in the village quite knows what to do because they all can see that the child has died. So they say, well, why don't you go and see the Buddha? Yeah, he'll know what to do. And so she walks many miles, comes into the presence where the Buddha is staying at that time. And she says, can you help me? Can you help my child? And he says, yes, please go to me, I can help you. What I need is a mustard seed. And she's almost kind of up and off, you know, probably thinking that he requires this mustard seed to perform some sort of ritual that will restore her child's health. But he says, it has to come from a house that doesn't pass and experience death. So she's off and she's knocking on doors all day. And again, she's like, yes, we can give you a mustard seed to take to the Buddha, but this house has certainly experienced death more than once. And eventually, towards the end of the day, the teaching therein starts to kind of dawn that there isn't actually a household that hasn't experienced death yet. Death is an absolute integral part of life, and she's able to see now that her child is. So that is it's a very kind of moving story. It's also it is a very good example of his skillful means. The teaching is always appropriate to the person, to the individual. It's sometimes talked about how our current state of ignorance, or our current state of spiritual unawareness, is the sickness. That is what causes all of our discomfort. Therefore, the Dharma, the Buddha's teachings, are the medicine, and the Buddha himself is the doctor. Sometimes talked about in that way. So yes, he could have just launched into a whole discourse on death or life and death, or he could have just said, "Please go to me, your child has died." But what he did was give her a task that she could perform. She could an experience that she could go through that would reveal the truth in her own experience. So anyway, that's just an example of his skillful means. Not quite what we're talking about today, but yeah, I've talked a little bit about faith in Buddha and in the Dharma, his teachings. Faith in the Sangha, the third most precious thing in Buddhism, along with the Buddha and the Dharma. Yeah, faith in the Sangha, the community of people practicing the teachings, that can, well, just to see people a little bit further on the path, maybe. It does give us a confidence that yeah, well, yes, the spiritual life can be lived. There is a way of understanding these teachings and living by them, and all of these vows that we take on. So I would say these are all what I've talked about so far are rather mundane ways of talking about faith, and I don't mean, you know, mundane as in, oh, they're just not worth our time, or they're just not very, it's all a bit shallow, it's not very deep. These are all, you know, talking in terms of confidence and faith and trust and provisional faith, all very essential aspects to faith. But there is a way of talking about faith where it does go deeper than that. I think very often the Buddha's teachings are really just there to kind of make sure that the ground of the mind isn't kind of too trodden down, too certain. He's just wanting us to kind of churn the mind up a little bit and kind of keep an open mind, if you like. We were talking before about how the dangers of having a mind that is quite, you know, fixed and certain. So he wants us to kind of just, I think very often he's just saying, this might be a useful way for you to start thinking in terms of cause and effect, or karma, or rebirth. He's not really trying to describe reality. He found that he couldn't describe reality. But he's just kind of saying this is a useful way for you to start thinking so the mind doesn't get too trodden down, too certain. And the fact that he found that he couldn't say anything at all about reality, about the truth that he directly perceived. He found that he couldn't say anything about it. Words and concepts and ideas just didn't cut it. Means that all of our kind of intellectual reasoning, when we apply the intellect and reason and rational to what we're doing to kind of investigating the spiritual life, at some point it just starts to show its limitations, and we find that we can't go any further with it. And we find that if we want to go on walking this path of awakening, something else is going to have to start coming in, and that is the whole world of intuition and heart responses and kind of feeling our way through this. And that is ultimately, I think, what faith in Buddhism, that is what Shred Heart is. It refers to when the heart becomes engaged. And in fact, it's said that until the heart is engaged, there is no spiritual life to speak of at all. So yeah, just using the head, just using the kind of that part of our being, the intellect, the rational reasoning, as vital as that is, and Buddhism does absolutely value that. We don't want to be bound by it. We don't want to be we don't want to use it as a straitjacket. Because we are not just intellectual beings, are we? I mean, there's a whole other side to us, a whole other aspect that is completely untouched by all of our intellectual reasoning, and that is the whole aspect of emotion. We are emotional beings, and that has to be brought into play as well. Maybe one final way of kind of approaching the whole topic of faith is to just ask, well, why do we continue to come? Why do we continue to find ourselves either on the meditation cushion or coming to church, or what is it that I don't mean kind of sit down and come up with a list of reasons why, but just to acknowledge that there's something that keeps us coming back, something keeps us kind of drawing us on, a calling, if you like. I don't know if you quite like that terminology, but yeah, so there's something that wants us to kind of keep moving in its direction, clearly. And to examine what that is not an intellectual exercise. It's a faith-based thing. In fact, there was something in something that Louise sent out. I don't know whether you sent it to everybody, but anybody who's familiar with the universal flame, is that what it's called?
I'm not certain. What was it you were thinking?
I don't remember it word for word now. It was well, I'll word it in the way that we word it, and then you'll go, oh, maybe you'll go, oh, well, that's what we call it. So Sangharakshita, the founder of our order, once talked about faith being that which is ultimate in us responding to that which is ultimate in the universe, or maybe kind of less, a bit more straightforwardly put. He talked about when you have a stringed instrument, when you have two stringed instruments, playing the strings of one, the other will start to softly vibrate. There's a kind of resonance. We are the universe made conscious. I'm sure you've heard that term before. And therefore, there's something in us that can that responds to to something that is maybe bigger than our small little me, but something of which we are completely inseparable from, completely apart from. I could probably maybe find in fact, I actually have it here. What we sent out. Oh, but I don't have any internet access. But yes, it definitely had the same kind of sentiments to it. So I know that we're all kind of on the similar page with that. All right, well, maybe I'll kind of stop there with the actual talk more. Any things to kind of pick up on, or any questions or any comments to make before maybe we'll have a short meditation or something.
Well, I don't know who said it or wrote it, but there was a quotation. Faith is believing what you logically know cannot possibly be true. But not that I'm going on with that.
Well, it says something about
quotation.
It is. It
just was very fond of that.
Yeah, it does say something about that. This is not ultimately. It is not a logical thing that we're engaged with. Yes, we on some level we do need to understand what Jesus is saying or what the Buddha is saying. On an intellectual level, we need to understand what is being said. But ultimately, it just starts to show its limitations, and we find that, yes, I can't go any further with reason and logic and intellect, because we are not just intellectual beings. So we need to start plummeting the emotional depths.
Carl Jung again, he said, if somebody asked him, do you still have faith? And he said, no, I don't. I have a knowledge. I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as I say, we do sometimes talk about insight in Buddhism, which kind of means, yes, a bit of kind of wisdom in that particular area of life. We might, there might be certain areas that are still completely in the dark, but in this particular area of life, I do have some knowledge, and therefore faith is kind of, as I said, given way to personal first-hand experience. So yes, it is very possible.
Regarding faith as trust, there's a good example in the film Waterworld.
Yeah.
You seen it?
What was Kevin Costner?
Well, basically the plot is that it's in the future.
Yes,
but
and it's completely covered in water.
There's dry land somewhere that they're looking for.
I see.
But there's a child with a tattoo on his back, which is a map showing how to get to the dry land.
Right. Oh, I see.
That's the basic.
I see.
So you've got the two opposite, you've got the evil characters trying to get this, and the few heroes. And at one point, I'll call them the heroes, they're on a sort of primitive helicopter.
Yes, I've seen clips of that.
And the evil lot actually put smoke out. And they're coming for the child. Now the child's being captured by the evil lot. Recaptured by the heroes.
Okay.
And have it on this helicopter. But the child actually falls off the helicopter down into the water. And the hero, I forget who it is. Anyway, there's a rope lying on the floor with this helicopter. He ties the rope round one of his ankles, jumps off. As he was jumping off, he said, secure the other end.
Oh, it would have to.
And of course it did.
Good. So they did get the child, and the goodies won.
I thought that was a good example.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I will try and kind of seek it out. Yes, I am aware of that film, but yes, I've never seen it. Now, do we want to sit this time? I mean, we usually do sit for a little bit, but I thought, what time are we in this room till?
Well, officially 11, but I mean, it depends if anybody wants to use it. I'm not quite doubtful. I think there is another room that can use.
I imagine you mean 12.
Aye.
Because I was thinking, I mean, we've often kind of just done a general, either a general awareness meditation or something like that. But I was thinking about leading a meditation that has a bit more kind of structure to it. It has a bit more to rest the mind upon. I know it's difficult for everybody to essentially rest the mind upon essentially nothing and just kind of allow it to rest there. But there are meditations that have a bit more kind of structure, but it's just a little bit potentially lengthy. It comes in 5 stages. I wonder if we spent 1, 2, yes, maybe we're too lengthy. All right, well, we'll just do a kind of general awareness meditation and do a body scan for 10 minutes. Yeah, as I said, I always say, how we sit has an effect. Mind and body are completely interrelated. So, sitting kind of comfortably, not so comfortable that we're drifting a little bit. We have to kind of find some sort of middle way between comfort and something that invites alertness as well. The first thing I always do is bring to mind that there's nothing really to do. There's nothing expected of me. Nowhere else I'm supposed to be, nothing else I'm supposed to be doing. It seems to have a relaxing effect on the body. Start to notice relaxation in the body, the shoulders. Deep relaxation comes from noticing the more subtle muscles in the face, the jaw, the eyes, throat muscles. That can become apparent when the body is relaxing. Is the weight of the body suddenly aware of gravity, sort of pushing down? You might be able to sense that most in the sitting bones, where you're making contact with the chair. See if you can rest all of your awareness on that very definite. Go through the whole body in a very mindful way, starting with the feet up to the crown of the head, relaxing the muscles as you go. Spend some time on the physical within the body. And just give some awareness to the physical outside the body. So just awareness of the space around you, other people. Sounds. What we're aiming to do is just rest back, really deeply relax and allow sound to arise, allow sound to pass. Trying to get caught up in sound. Just want to allow it to come and go with its own form. And then we do the same internally. So first of all, just aware of how you're feeling. What is the emotional tone to now? Every moment has its feeling tone. There's nothing to do with that. There's nothing to change. Just want to sit with the feeling tone in a very kind of immediate way. Notice that all manner of things still arise in the mind as we sit. There's still thought, still feeling, sensation, memory. Again, just see if you can rest back and be an observer. When things come, let them come. When things go, let them go. Promise that if we spend time together again, I'll make a bit more time for that structured meditation, because it is worth doing. And even what we just did is worth doing. 5-10 minutes every day is worth doing. But yes, it would be nice to kind of sit a bit longer. It's a loving kindness meditation. It's worth kind of flexing that muscle, as we all know, isn't it? We've got to. Sometimes it doesn't come all that easy to us, but it does, like anything else. If we flex that particular muscle, it grows, isn't it? Loving kindness. So yes, be nice to maybe do that next time. Nice to see you all. Spend some time with you again. Sorry if it felt a bit rushed at our parts.
And before we have coffees, I do actually have a universal flame reading. So since it's only very short, perhaps we'd like to close on that and then get together. The divine within us reaches out to the divine around us. And the fire that burns concealed in the arc of the heart burns too as the broader universal flame, which makes our spirits one. May it be so.